I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast. William Flint is an artist and editorial cartoonist in DFW. AKA Bubba tells us how he took his natural talent and turned his cartoon flair into a career. He has a vast clientele here in Dallas, from local publications like the Dallas Morning News, Whiterock Lake Weekly, and the Katy Trail Weekly, to the Dallas Cowboys and even the band Old 97s, and so much more in between I can't even list it all. William does many art shows a year, and you can even hit him up for a custom portrait for much less than you'd imagine. I hope you enjoy my chat with artist William Bubba Flint.
I brought nothing.
You don't need anything.
Okay.
Just need you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here we are today with Mr. William Flint, Bubba Flint. Let's start with, where's Bubba come from?
I was born and raised in Mesquite, and I think everybody out there at one time or another is called Bubba. And I did not like that, but it kind of stuck. I went to SMU, which no one there ever knew the word Bubba. So I did not take that with me there. So coming out and trying to be a so-called professional, I thought, well, that'll go away. That Bubba will go away. And I can't shake it. It's a dog that follows me around everywhere.
Right. Well, so, I mean, it's a different meaning probably now than
and some people will say, well, what do I call you? And I've been called a lot of bad things, but Bubba is not the worst. So
right.
Anything, and I just kind of like Flint because it's kind of short and sweet. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
it's funny. Every time I see you do a Flintstone, I'm like, there's like
absolutely
some connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you started in Mesquite. You grew up there completely?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I was born in Dallas at Baylor Hospital, but yeah, I grew up in Mesquite. Actually still live there. I can't break away from there. Grew up in Mesquite. Just started drawing probably at age 3 or 4.
Wow.
And it's just something I love doing. I didn't know that everybody couldn't do it. So I would draw at home. I had an older sister that was in school, but I would just draw at home. So when I finally went to school in first grade, I'm just up there just drawing away, and then all of a sudden I look over and that's not so good. Huh. And I look over and that's not so good. And so it is at that point I realized, I can do something other people can't do.
That early.
And but wow. I just loved it.
When you were drawing back then, like you're drawing like just like normal kid stuff?
Pretty much same stuff I'm doing now. No, I do that. I love cartoons back then.
Right.
And I would draw cartoons, and then I would just try to draw my own goofy characters. So yeah, it was a lot of cartoons back then.
So that's kind of how it's always been cartoons. It's always been part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any other kind of art back then?
No. I was drawing, and then I guess around high school you start getting kind of a formal. I had a wonderful art teacher at Mesquite High that actually was with me since junior high and moved up to high school as I moved up, and she really kind of pushed me to do other things. I would do, back then I'd paint kiss portraits and stuff like that right. for contests, and she would always say, there's no way this is going to win. And actually a kiss portrait did win this state art contest. Wow. So she kind of like, okay, continue on. But, I pushed the boundaries, did clay, did all that kind of stuff, but I always came back to the stuff that I had a passion for,
which was the cartoons.
You were the cartoons
and the portraits.
Yeah.
So you're in high school, like at this point you're like, I'm doing this in college, like this is a career. At what point did that happen?
Kind of what happened is, when you start thinking about careers in high school, because up to then you didn't think about that, you just did stuff. I realized that there's this thing called editorial cartoons. And so I started noticing in the local papers, Bob Taylor from the Dallas Times-Herald was great. And so I started looking at that. And I kind of like politics. I've always had a sense of humor. So politics and sense of humor. So I actually drew, our school had a newspaper, the MHS Monitor. And so I did editorial cartoons for that. And from there I started doing editorial cartoons for the local city paper, the Mesquite News, because the editor there, because I was playing sports, he knew me, knew I was an artist also, said, well, why don't you draw something for the paper? So that's kind of how I got going in the editorial cartoons. And I saw, hey, this is a way to maybe make a living. So I really kind of pushed that. And really, the painting stuff, I still love doing, but I was looking for a career.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's where that really came into
focus. So you're doing painting. I mean, you were doing portraits back then too, like trying to do realistic kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, that's what's funny. I would try to do a portrait. We'd do self-portraits and we'd do paintings of our people and pencil sketches. And my stuff always had a cartoon flair to it. I didn't intend on that. Uh-huh. And even, later on, I had the opportunity to go to SMU on an art degree. And even I would go there and, oh, Lord, you didn't do anything lowbrow or cartoonist there. It was all, you paint nude models and all that. And,
sure.
And even my stuff would come out with a little bit of a cartoon flair. I even did an abstract painting. And even my instructor, which I had some great instructors there, said, I don't know how you can do an abstract painting and it still looks like a cartoon abstract painting. I said, I don't know. I don't mean to do this. It just happens. Yeah.
Well, now all I'm thinking of is I want to see a nude Flint model shot.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point you're at SMU, you've got a scholarship. You must realize like this is where it's going to be happening.
Yeah, I did. The key thing, and I had a lot of professors that they were making a living somewhat at art, but not, and that's why they were professors. But they would always say, make a living doing what you need to with art, just don't compromise your integrity.
Right.
And that didn't mean a lot at first, and then later on you start going, well, I understand what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always had kind of a job. I taught art for 10 years just so I could get my daughter through college and do those kind of things with the insurance. And then
sure.
Finally, my art on the side became bigger than what I was doing, and it was taking up all my time that I could become a full-time artist.
Right. Okay. So you didn't start just doing.
No. My first job was actually working for a sign company, designing logos and doing color renderings, and I worked there under some great artists that taught me a lot of great things. And so I kind of was doing that, and I was doing the editorial cartoons on the side. I was drawing for like 4 and 5 papers. So then that just evolved, and it was later I got to go to college, to SMU, apply, get a scholarship, go there, and get a degree from there, and then I started teaching art for a little while, once again to get my daughter through her college, and it just kind of, after a time, the art on the side became more than what I was doing at a job, mm-hmm. And so I was cheating both. I wasn't probably the best employee because I spent so much time late in the evening on this, and I wasn't the best artist over here because I had this job. So I was finally just said, okay, I'm going to dive in and just be an artist.
Yeah.
And I haven't regretted it since.
That's great. I mean, that's something that all artists face. I mean, I remember the moment where I'm like, at a show till like 11 and then I have a 7 a.m. job.
Absolutely.
And so, but I think it's important for people to know, like hear about like how,
Absolutely.
This is how an artist does it sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's rare.
Well, it's funny you say that. There was times that I would literally come home from work and I would work till the next morning and had to be at work because I just had so many deadlines and stuff. So I wouldn't get sleep. But that's what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole old adage, we didn't choose this, it chose us.
Right.
But it's true, and
Absolutely.
it's like, I'm not happy if I'm not doing the stuff.
Yeah, that's funny. Now I get up at 5:30 every morning and start working, and people look at me like, why would you do that? Because I'm so excited to be able to go in there and do that I don't mind. Sometimes I look at the clock, it's 4:30. I go, crap, I got another hour. I got to wait before I can get up.
I'm the same way with editing photos, exactly.
Isn't that
from
great,
the show.
though?
Yeah, but I'm also like getting to the point where like, well, I can't edit the same night because then I'm not giving it the right,
same here.
attention.
Well, that's right now. My wife will say, look, quit working on the weekend. You can't work. You can't get up, and you need a break. And I do, because my mind starts getting scrambled after a while. But I need to walk away for a little bit.
Yeah, that's another thing you got to learn is like, okay, now I've been spending how many years like trying to get as much work as I can.
Right.
Now I need to find the pauses. That's been hard for me too.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's good to have a girlfriend or wife or someone to help you.
Right, keep you on the narrow path.
Important.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I just want to throw the side question in. My girlfriend Amy wanted to know, what kind of acrylics are you using?
That's a great question, because what I've done is from all different kinds of acrylics. Acrylics have come a long way. I mean, I used to paint with oils, which would take 8 years to dry, and acrylics have become so good and vibrant. But I've noticed in different acrylics, there's certain colors that are better than other colors. So I have kind of a combination of Winsor Newton blue and this brown and this. So it's kind of a collage. And there's actually some of that cheap $1.25 acrylic paint you get at Hobby Lobby that the color's more vibrant than a $20 tube.
Huh.
So it's kind of all over the place.
So there's not like one magic answer.
No, there's not really one. There's not really one brand that has all the good colors. Some brands have more good colors. And I've kind of learned the more expensive it is, sometimes they're not that good. You know, I kind of pride myself on bright colors and really make it pop. But a lot of that's mixing colors with other colors that you just can't go and buy.
Right.
And so in answering her question, I can't answer it so much. It's just a collage of everything. There's this one green that I can only get through a $1.25 tube, but then the black, if you get it cheap, it's not it's translucent. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of everywhere.
That's interesting too. I mean, that's a medium I'm totally foreign to, and it's cool because, like, in a way, that's maybe better because if you're making your own colors, no one in the world is going to be able to replicate your look. So,
well, here's the good news, bad news on that. Yeah, you're right. The bad news is when you do this painting that somebody loves, buys, and then two other people go, "Oh, I want that painting." And you go, "Well, wait a minute." Now I can't kind of remember. And my palette, I used to have a big palette where I'd mix my colors and everything. Well, now I've just gone with paper plates because I do so much mixing, and I just throw it away after I'm through.
Oh, and then you can't get it
and
back.
Then I'm like, I forget what I even did. So even though I try to replicate a color, sometimes it's just not so much.
Right.
But that's the beauty of it, I guess.
There's another random question. I just kind of became aware how some people see colors differently.
Right.
Do you consider yourself someone that sees extra color, or you just kind of feel like you're just normal vision? Or
I think with me, I see the painting kind of before it happens. And I kind of have in my mind these colors that I think it should be. And until I hit that color, I'm really not happy, because any painting is kind of like a relationship. It starts out sometimes rough and you're not liking it, and then all of a sudden you do, and then sometimes at the very end it all comes together, and sometimes it falls apart and you bring it back. So even with colors, you're like, that color, I probably shouldn't have used it, but you make something else, And I kind of have a way, when I finish it up, I come back with a black that kind of highlights everything, and that's part of the cartooning and editorial cartoonist that I would do. Comes about. I would hammer a lot in college saying, you don't need the black outline, let it be, and all that, which that's fine. That is true. But for me, my signature is kind of those black, details that I love putting in there.
I like that edge. I like that too, especially with photos. I have a couple directions I want to go, but I feel like we're in this place already. So a lot of your work now, like I've got 3 pieces of yours.
Right.
One of them
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, probably not the last 3. There's you basically, what do you go to secondhand shops and get these unique frames?
I go to thrift stores every month. First Monday in Canton has a big thrift swap, and we look forward to going down there, just finding frames. But anytime I'm out and I'm at an antique store or we see a garage sale, anywhere, I'll get a frame. I've actually literally gotten it out of the trash. We'll be driving by and somebody's moving or something. They'll have a stack of frames, and I go over there and cherry pick them and get them out. Yeah.
That's cool. And then, and then a lot of your subjects, well, you have a couple of different themes. Like there's a lot of tiki stuff.
Right.
There's a lot of like famous cartoons or maybe even pop culture figure. Like how does that all, come about?
A lot of it, what's happened lately is kind of, I don't know. I love tiki. I love the tiki culture. I love the rat rod culture, if you will. Any of that lowbrow, I just love that. And so it kind of, unfortunately, lately, I haven't been able to paint whatever I want to. I've had to paint kind of what a show's coming up or this or that. I'm going to be in a show in March. It's a pinball show. It's the biggest pinball festival in the country, and it happens every year in Frisco. And so I have a booth there. But fortunately, all the pinball machines are like Elvira, the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, all these type things that I enjoy. So I just do the paintings I enjoy of those kind, and people with game rooms come and buy them. But anyway, I kind of pick those subjects. And so I think what decides what I paint is kind of the direction. Every year at Halloween, I'll do like 13 paintings. Just do them, and people will buy them for whatever reason. I just post them, they buy them because I love Halloween. Right. But I do old vintage. I've always said that for me, I have 2 mainstream to be underground and too underground to be mainstream. So I'm somewhere in there, and that's where I think my paintings are. I mean, I'll do Wilma Flintstone with maybe a little lower top and a little more endowed than what she really is, and that's the fun part of it. And
Sure.
and I make mashups where you take the Jetsons will be in Bedrock, or vice versa. Flintstone will be in the Jetsons pad. And that's fun, too, because I try to take all these different elements that I enjoy and kind of put them together.
Okay.
So, but
Yeah.
and even, and somebody might say, well, so what? You're painting the Flintstones. That's already been done. And I would agree with that. But what I try to do is bring my own flair to the Flintstones and kind of, I guess, keep them in people's memory. I'll do a Flintstones painting that has my style to it, but it's still, you'll see it. But it just kind of adds a twist, maybe a mid-century modern twist to Flintstones. And I don't know, to me, that's, even if I wasn't making money to do it, that's what I'd be doing at night anyway.
It's fun because there was a time where I was at Deep Elm Art Company 6 nights a week, and they'd be changing that art wall every month, and I'd be just like, oh my God, look what he's done this time. It always stands out. I just love your style.
You're too kind, thank you.
Yeah,
and I think, and I'll throw this back at you. I don't really understand all of the reasons, but I think a big appeal of some of my art is that it brings back some childhood memories. It brings back a time when we enjoyed things a little simpler. And for a younger generation, I think they see that and they like that nostalgic bit about it. Mm-hmm. But in reality, I like to say they're future paintings of the past, because there's something you haven't really seen before, but you have. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess it would be kind of like you hear a band that reminds you of the Beatles. It's not the Beatles, but that's why you like them, because it reminds you. So maybe, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know what your appeal to it is, either of my art.
I think, for example, I would see you did a bunch of Bowies, was one of my favorites.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And you did, I forget, different eras. And I was like, where's Screaming Lord Byron? That was my, I think I did that for Halloween one year.
Right.
And I messaged you. I was like, you should do that one. You're like, it costs this much, which, by the way, it's super reasonable. It's incredible how inexpensive it is to get one.
Let me touch on that for a second. And I've had people say that. I try to keep my art kind of reasonable. And I always keenly say I'm kind of the Ramones of the art world. I don't want to be the big prog rock band or the band that has this massive stage that they charge $200, $300 for a ticket. I want to be this kind of an alternative band. I don't want to say really punk rock, but kind of the Ramones style, that you can come over here, see a good show. It's not going to be polished. It's not going to be great. I mean, my paintings, you still see the pencil lines in it. You still see the imperfections, but I take pride in that. The frame you get might have a nick in it or a scratch in it, but I'm going to give it to you at a reasonable cost, because I want you to enjoy my art. And I don't want to show. I've turned down big galleries where they say, oh, we could sell your stuff for, blah, 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 big money. I'm like, that's not what I'm about. I do these. I do them because I love them. I do them pretty quick, and I want to keep it affordable. I want, people to be able to take a piece of my art home, and believe it or not, probably now over half my customers are repeat customers.
Oh, I believe it.
There's some people that have 10 and 15 paintings of mine because they'll see it. Oh, I got to have that, and they know I'm going to be affordable. And I don't want to sell just because I'm affordable. I want to sell because people want some art. They can't afford it, and that's, it's kind of my calling.
It's great. I have 3. And I find the longer I know you, I'll probably have more. And another thing that's cool about that is, because your style is so distinctive, people can go, what I'd love to have is his version of this.
Right.
And that's got to be your bread and butter with that stuff.
Absolutely.
But it's awesome, Let me go backwards on my sheet a little bit.
We can go anywhere you want to go.
What are some of the artists that influenced you directly?
Oh, great question. Well, obviously the first one would have to be Andy Warhol, because pop art. I mean, sure. I really love that. I love his whole, I guess, theme. Even outside the art. But Andy Warhol, I being at SMU, I learned about all the art movements, all the artists. But so much of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons have as much influence on me as any major artist. Uh-huh. There's a lot of lowbrow artists out there. Rat Fink's one. Von Dutch, he was this painter that did, hot rods and stuff. I loved him. But, there's really, I always say everything kind of influences me. Even the bad art influenced me because it influenced me not to want to do it.
Huh.
If I
Yeah.
see a piece of art and I go, I really don't like that. That doesn't appeal. That influenced me to not do it. So that's an influence to me.
Huh. Yeah.
But yeah, probably, like I say, Van Gogh's, I love the way he used color. I love the way he was sloppy. And even Jackson Pollock, for that matter, he could take, one of his splatter paintings, but you knew it was his because he had a style with the splatter painting, with this abstract. And so, I don't know. My influences are all over the place. I'm just as much, I can't say influences by Jesus as I am by the Marx Brothers, because
Right.
I'm just kind of all over the place. But it's always kind of has this channeling to a vibe, this kind of lowbrow alternative vibe. But it's not because I push myself. That's just who I am.
Sure. Okay, maybe not influence then. Dallas artists that, maybe like starting back when you first were starting to notice other artists
Yeah,
here.
well, I guess it was when I went to Dallas Museum of Art, I started seeing all this other art. Roy Lichtenstein is one, obviously, because he does. But comic books had as much to me. I probably get as much from Mad Magazine as I was from anything. And it was later in life when I started realizing there were artists out there. There's been a lot of lowbrow type artists that have kind of, hit the big time. Basquiat's one, that's out there. So I don't know. I don't know that one. I mentioned Bob Taylor earlier. He was a cartoonist for the Herald. He was a big influence. Jack Davis of Mad Magazine. And then when you start seeing paintings by these masters, you go, oh, well, those guys had talent. And you just to try to mimic what they would do in itself would be very difficult. A Michelangelo or a Da Vinci, those guys were great, but you can still learn things from them. So
Sure.
I think from them, I learned a lot of color technique and outline and stuff of that nature.
Okay. How this is Dallas Famous Podcast, so what can you tell us about your impression of the Dallas art scene, like how it relates to you? You don't have to give me your broad view, just your
Well,
view.
Dallas art, which I'm so fortunate that I live in Dallas because Dallas is, it's an art town to me. It really is. And even being at SMU, the Meadows Museum over there. But for me growing up, hanging around Deep Ellum, you can't help but to notice, Frank Capanga at Kettle is big influence because and I didn't even know him until recently, last few years I met him. Great guy. We're really good friends. I show him the Kettle, which having a big event this weekend. But seeing his art, his murals and paintings he did up on the walls, and that influenced me as much as anything. And so the whole Dallas scene, we were talking earlier about Salim Nourala, and I love him as an artist, the old 97s. We have so much art here that is, to me, it's just, we're very lucky to be here.
Yeah.
So, as far as finding one Dallas artist, I don't know that there's, so much I just see something and it influenced me. I don't know who it is. You'll go and I'll see a T-shirt or I'll see a banner, and in my mind, it'll stick there. Now we take a picture with our phone, so I have it for all prosperity. Right. But yeah, Dallas itself has been an influence on me. I get as much. I have probably sold. I was asked this not long ago. What's the one painting I've sold the most of? And I don't know because I haven't really kept up, but I would say Big Tex is right at the top. And I love Big Tex. I grew up going to the fair. I saw the stages of Big Tex from this creepy, cool cowboy to now, he's politically correct and all since.
Right.
But I still go back to that creepy, cool Big Tex. And man, when I do one, it's gone. People love that.
Yeah.
I think that nostalgia part. But probably in saying Dallas, the state fair had as much influence on me as anything. Seeing the sideshows back then, seeing the rides, the brightness down the Midway. That really influenced me big time.
Huh. Yeah, I could see that. That's cool. I could see that in your art when I think about it like
Yeah.
that. That's cool.
And I've been fortunate. I've got to work with Amber Fletcher with Fletcher Corny Dogs, done some work for her.
Oh, okay.
Which is, those deals are a dream. I got to do some work for Big Boy, the restaurant. I think they're located up in Chicago or something. Had them reach out, and I designed some logos for them, a girl Big Boy and stuff. But that Big Boy has been a big influence on me as a kid.
Is cool. That is a perfect marriage for you.
Oh
actually.
yeah, as a kid, I'd go to those restaurants. I'd just stare at the little statue.
Yeah.
I have a little Big Boy in my studio, and I keep things in my studio that influence me every day. Whether it's Goofy, a little fur toy or something. That kind of stuff just influences me, makes me want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. What, do you have any big stuff on the horizon?
Yeah, I got that show coming up in Frisco, the pinball machine, but I have a show coming up in Tulsa at a place called Buck Adams Cosmic Curiosity. And Mary Beth, the owner up there, we kind of got to know each other. So I'll do a show there every year, and it's just a little on Route 66, which once again, big influence on me. The Blue Well of Catoosa and all these different things on Route 66. So I do a show on Route 66. That'll be coming up April 1st, actually, on April Fool's Day. And I have that. I'm sure there will be each week or each year Dallas does a Dallas Tiki Week. I'll have a booth there. Jen over at Swizzle, she puts that on, and I actually have some art at the Swizzle, tiki art. So that'll be coming up. But yeah, I always,
how many of these a year? It's like that you're doing.
I probably do about 5 shows a year.
Okay.
And then you mentioned Deep Elm Art Company, a revolving show there all the time. I'm in there about twice a year because they'll do something for art, and then they'll do photography. And then all female artists and whatnot. So I'm in there. I'm in the Kettle. They'll do a couple shows. Have a wall at the Swizzle. Have a wall at Buck Adams of stuff. So I'm just here and there and a little bit of everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we go, one last thing because part of your editorial cartoons is sports.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Big sports fan.
I am. Well, here's a little plug. I've drawn for the Dallas Cowboys since '87.
Wow.
My first year was Landry's last year, the year before Jerry Jones. Kind of got that. I was doing editorial cartoons, and one of the editors there had seen something, reached out, said, hey, would you do a cartoon for us? I said, yeah, sure. Well, then it turned into a weekly thing, and it was the Dallas Cowboys Weekly. And then that went away a few years ago. Now I just draw for the game day programs, any home game I do. But yeah, there's a side of me a lot of people don't know. I played college baseball for a while at Eastfield College, which was a baseball powerhouse. I went to Mesquite, played baseball, and Eastfield had 2 successful years and thought about maybe going the minor league route and just decided, no, I want to be an artist. This is where my passion is. So I took that route. So there's still a sports side of me. And I used to kind of, I don't want to say be ashamed of that, but didn't mention that. And then all of a sudden I realized I started hearing all these rock stars that love baseball or love doing this. And I was like, hey, I'm okay. I can do that. Which, one thing we didn't talk about, I don't mean to ramble on.
Not at all.
But music is a big influence in my life, too.
Sure.
I love music. When I work, I'm always playing music. I've loved the music scene. And I mentioned earlier, the Sex Pistols, Ramones, they had a big influence on me. I saw the Sex Pistols. And I know everybody here in Dallas says they saw the Sex Pistols, but, but I did get to see them. It kind of changed my life because before then, as a young kid, you saw these big Kiss shows and Elton John, and they were big production. Well, then all of a sudden you see these 4 guys that probably aren't the best musicians, dressed like they're from a thrift store, and you go, wow, that's kind of cool. So then it kind of made me as an artist say, you know what, I don't have to have this big, fancy past masters painting. I can do anything, and it's going to be okay. And that kind of influenced me a lot.
Wow, like it freed you up. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
What about now? Like, what other contemporary music are you into? Or
well,
people are still around?
It's funny because now I've always kind of seeked out the obscure type bands. But there's a band called the Tender Sticks that, a lot of people don't know, but they've been around for a while. I love the Clientele. They're from England. I love the old 97s from around, you just got to be in a certain mind frame for different times, like I'll play Miles Davis every now and then to get me in a certain mind frame. Sure. And I love, the older jazz, but yeah, just music in general. I try to catch as many concerts, I always kid people that back in the day you'd go to the Bronco Bowl every week and you'd see the Clash, the Pretenders, for $10 you just go in there. And
wow.
The Cure before they were big.
Sure.
And it was really great. So I have a hard time now going to a stadium to see somebody when I saw them, when they were original band in a little small setting.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
that's why the local bands are still probably the most energy you can get at a show.
Yeah. And Celine, like we talk about Celine Rolla, he's one of my favorites. I love him.
Yeah, same.
Which he's heavily influenced by a lot of the bands I like, the Jam, the Beatles, I mean, that's probably why I like him. We like the same music.
Yeah, I mean, his song is the theme song.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Unstoppable.
Yeah.
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 Hey, thank you so much for coming
Thank
by.
you for
This
having
is
me.
really
I'm
fun.
Honored to be on here.
Oh, please.
I was kidding with some friends, and I get this last plug in. They said, so you're doing Dallas Famous? And they go, have they run out of people to do it? I said, obviously they have. So
we're just getting started.
No, we're kidding.
Yeah, that's hilarious though. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek phrase. I haven't really talked about it much, but for a while people would be like, you're doing really good. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm Dallas Famous. Like, nobody knows who I am anywhere but right here. Like they're like, are you going to shoot this show in this other city? I'm like, I have no, I'm not. I'm a Dallas. I'm like, I tethered to Dallas. But
well, you are an icon in Dallas. So
that's an icon. Like that. It's like a pun, right?
Oh, but it is now. See, it's just natural. I didn't even mean for it.
That's funny. Yeah. I appreciate it. Hey, well, thanks again. It was great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you again to William Flint for being my guest. Theme song Unstoppable by Salim Nawala. You can check out the Dallas Famous podcast every Sunday and Tuesday at 1 p.m. on deepellumradio.com, and then all the podcast places the following week. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.